Professor Chiu.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So first of all, thank you very much to join our workshop organized by our School of Law and also Taipei University, and of course the International ICCS Center, because we know from already many years we discussed about the problem of forced labor in Taiwan, but I would say until the joint bicycle case, the public, or I say the policy, did not pay a lot of attention to the topic. So first of all, I want to thank you for Professor Golden to give us such a speech. It's really very important to help us to point out the direction of the policy. What can we do in the future? I think it's very important from a different kind of perspective. First of all, from the government. What kind of policy we are having, and what can we do? And to help to improve the human rights and also the company. I think both sides are very important. And I think from the Professor Golden's article, I also read the important role of the trade union. What the union can do in the supply chain human rights issue, I think is very complex. So I would like to invite Professor Golden again to discuss, continue the discussion. Yeah. So as a discountant, I just want to share some perspective. We want to focus on how can we improve the human rights, how can we deal with the problem of forced labor in the supply chain. And first of all, I want to, I want to just, this is the, sorry, okay. 有吗？没有吗？哎，它不能动。哎，give me 1 minute。有。Okay. Yeah. So first of all, I just want to cite the slide from Professor Golden because I think it's very important to recognize the different position. I mean, from Taiwan and U.S. Because I think for Taiwan, very important is that the product from Taiwan, they can export and import it to other country. And the U.S. is the most important country for Taiwan. So I think the different role makes us to know we have two different kind of direction for the policy. Yeah. So during the speech from Professor Golden, we use the seafood industry as an example. But very important is not only the seafood supply chain, not only the vessel, but all the industry. I mean, it's very important for the human rights in the supply chain. Yeah, and okay. And for the participant today, not from Taiwan, I want to indicate first, in Taiwan, the migrant workers can only work in some industry. They cannot just go to Taiwan and apply for permission and to find a job in Taiwan as they will. They can only work in the industry, manufacturing, or on the vessel, or until this year, also in the agriculture. So we'll see in this kind of industry, the working conditions are already very bad. So we need labor force from other countries. This is also why the factor why come forced labor in the supply chain. So this is the very short background in Taiwan. And very important for our topic today is the forced labor. So I think every one of you must know, I don't know if you know or familiar with that, but you must know that for the International Labor Organization, the ILO, there are 11 indicators to identify forced labor. Yeah, but I would say until now in Taiwan, the 11 indicators are not so popular. When we talk about forced labor in Taiwan, we will think, do I do anything abusive to abuse my worker? If not, okay, I don't have any problem with forced labor. So if I do not threat my worker, so it's nothing to do with my company with forced labor problems. So I think this is until now the conscious in Taiwan. We don't think forced labor is a problem for our industry because we have a wrong image for forced labor. Yeah. So I think it's very important now to connect with the international standard and to know when we talk about in the international labor, how we talk about forced labor. And from the right side is the slide from Professor Golden. I think it's very important to say in Taiwan, the most important is not the abusive, it's not the restriction of movement or the physical violation, but the first of all is the debt bondage and very bad abusive working condition, or we have withdrawing the loan. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I think we have to notice that from Professor Golden's speech, and compared to the international indication, the very important thing is just what we ignore in Taiwan. And it's the indication, the retention of identification of documents, and also very important debt bondage, and also abusive working and living condition, and exclusive overtime. This is the most important we need to pay attention, but we ignore that as has a relation to do with forced labor. This is the situation in Taiwan. And I don't know if you talk about a lot about the joint case. I wonder if you know why CBP issued in this case. And in Taiwan, we think, okay, forced labor in joint bicycle, what happened to the workers? And if you pay attention, read to.
你告他没有到庭哎。
线上的来宾可以请你们关麦克风吗？ Linda. Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry. Okay, so if we pay attention to the giant case we have talked about for many times, the problem they assume forced labor in the factory is not because of the physical violence or threat, but it's just what Professor Gun just mentioned. It's because of debt bondage. It's because of withholding wages and also excessive overtime and also abusive working and living condition. This I say in Taiwan, we don't pay attention to the relationship from this education with forced labor. So I think this is the most risk why the company in Taiwan under so high risk, because we don't know what's forced labor. We don't think this problem is really happen in Taiwan. And one thing in Taiwan is, if you know the regulation in Taiwan, forced labor, when is forced labor illegal? Yeah, the question maybe for Professor Golden is very strange, but I will say that in Taiwan, we use the criminal law to deal with the forced labor problem. But when a case under criminal we cannot deal with because it's a very serious problem, then we see, if you see the withholding of wages, it's only a labor dispute. It's just a civil case. It's nothing to do with criminal law. If nothing to do with criminal law in Taiwan, it's not a problem. So I think this is the loophole. Yeah, nothing to do with criminal law, and it's only a labor dispute. But at the international level, this is the identification for forced labor. So if we cannot really identify forced labor, we will always under risk. And also very important is we say it's a rebuttal presumption. That means if we have that kind of identification, overtime work, or debt bondage, then it's assumed that some forced labor happens in the Taiwanese company. So from these pages, yeah, you see, we always pay attention to here the physical violation, the stress, but the most important in Taiwan is the right side. We need to know what is the debt bondage, what is the means, and we will not create more risk factor here in local companies. Yeah. So I want to mention a case from Taiwan. Just happened last year. Okay, just happened last year. Okay, my slide has some problem. Okay. Okay, give me 10 seconds. My computer has some problems. Okay. Okay, I just talked about, yeah. Okay, so my first point is, if we only pay attention to the criminal law with the forced labor issue, we will never address the problem in Taiwan. And second, we only pay attention to the violence of a physical violation or threat, then we will never know the real meaning of forced labor. And in Taiwan last year, we have a case on the distant water from a Taiwanese vessel, and they worked on the vessel for 15 months. And they didn't get any pay. Didn't get any pay, and they didn't get any pay until they returned to Taiwan, and they have a press conference. And then, in the end, the prosecutor didn't say this is a problem with forced labor because they just want the pay to get back the pay, and they take it again as only a labor dispute. They don't take it as a forced labor problem. Yeah, so this happened again and again. I would say from the seafood industry is only an example. If we don't take the example as a general principle, the company will always under that kind of a risk. Yeah, okay. So So, and my second point is, if we can really identify what is forced labor, we need an effective mechanism in Taiwan. Now we only have the criminal law, the system. So I mean the authority or for the labor inspection, they don't do anything to do the forced labor. If in that case, I would say not only the worker, but also the company, both under very high risk. Yeah, because they only think about the criminal law. Yeah, and then we don't have another mechanism. And in Taiwan, so if we say everything we can mediation because it's a labor dispute, but how can we say, because forced labor is the core of the point of the forced labor is the human rights, is the human dignity, the freedom, yeah? How can we say we can mediation and then I give you the payback? Then the problem is solved. How can we say that? But I would say the case in Taiwan, we deal with forced labor is in this way. Yeah, that's why I say many times Taiwan is under high risk. Yeah, so when my slide is a little bit slow, yeah, you will see, yeah, this is the case, it happened this year. Yeah, I just say the fishermen on the Taiwanese vessel, they work for 50 months and get no pay, nothing at all. And then in the end, our prosecutor say this is not forced labor, nothing to do with forced labor. And we cannot understand why nothing to do, because they have the identification of withdrawing the pays, the province, the wages, yeah? Okay, so this will continue to happen if we don't really to identify the importance of the different identification. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is the abusive working and living conditions for forced labor. And if you know, in Taiwan, we have a labor law called the Labor Standard Act. And according to the LSA, we have a minimum wage, we have working time protection, we have occupational safety protection, different kind of things. But in Taiwan, now the policy, some industry, migrant workers, if they work in some industry, they are exclusive. Yeah, from the protection, and mainly is the domestic workers. But if we from the supply chain perspective, now the problem is on the vessel in the seafood supply chain, and they're working on the Taiwanese flag vessel, and they are not, of course, in the seafood supply chain. And the problem is, first of all, I want to mention is because we are not talking about the flag of convenience. Flag convenience means it's a vessel owned by Taiwanese, but the flag is from other country. I'm talking about the vessel and operated by the Taiwanese company. And from the perspective, all the Taiwanese laborers should apply for this kind of case because of the flag state principle. Yeah, and it's also very important if the Taiwanese laborer apply for this migrant fishers, then they have a minimum working condition. Yeah, then we can prevent the abusive working condition to happen. So this is what we are working on. But the problem is in the seafood supply chain, if you work on the distant water vessel and you are not a Taiwanese, then the government deny to offer protection for the migrant fishers. If I say the word deny, that means I feel the government policy is illegal. Yeah, because according to the Labor Standard Act in Taiwan, that means if you work in Taiwan, and according to the flag state principle, if you work on a Taiwanese vessel, it still belongs to the territory of Taiwan. So this kind of situation, the vessel should also protected by the Labor Standard Act. Then they have the minimum labor standard act, the labor standard. Then they can prevent this happen abusive working condition. But in Taiwan, you say wages, working hours, rest time, holidays, everything for the workers in Taiwan. But we will talk about the vessel. The policy now, they don't have the minimum. They don't have the real minimum working condition. So I talk about the area of B. Yeah, the Taiwanese flag vessel. Yeah. So I think this is what we just talked about is very important. We should not create more risk to produce forced labor within our policy. So I think for my point of view, two very important things is we need to set minimum labor standard for all the workers. It doesn't matter you are migrant workers or local workers. And very important in Taiwan, because in the beginning I just mentioned migrant workers can only work in the manufacturing or in the fishing industry or in the domestic as domestic worker. And then now for domestic worker and for the fishing industry, they don't have the minimum labor standard. Yeah, this is very, very important. And the big difference, if you work on the vessel now in Taiwan, every month you only earn $550 US. Yeah, but the minimum wage in Taiwan is almost $900. So it's a great difference. So I mean, the living and working condition will be so abusive because of the policy, yeah, not because of the contract. So if our policy don't pay attention to the gap, then we are still under the forced labor risk. I mean, for the abusive working condition. Okay, the last point I want to mention is the debt bondage. It's also related to our policy because we say the employer pays principal, yeah, for the recruitment fee should be paid, but not from the worker, but from the employer. But in Taiwan, we have the regulations here. You can check in Taiwanese this regulation. They say the broker can ask the workers to pay the recruitment fee, the service fee every month. Yeah, it's regulate in our law. So I think it's very important to say if we create condition to make forced labor, then we will never address this problem. Yeah. So to my conclusion is, first of all, I think it's very important to identify forced labor. Forced labor in the ILO definition, to know that is the first thing. And second, I think we need to have a mechanism to identify forced labor. And third, we need to change our policy. Then the workers will not under the risk of debt bondage and they will not under abusive working condition. I think this is very important. And all the things is our government should do. Yeah, because our company will say, I follow all the laws in Taiwan. Why internationally I'm still against the law? Why I still banned from the US? Yeah, they cannot understand the logic. So I think it's a time to change our policy, to change our regulation. Then we can really to deal with the forced labor problem. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much.
So thank you very much for Professor Yufan Chiu to provide a very clear introduction about Taiwan's status quo and the related law and the controversial issues that we are facing right now. So I mean, the participant here and participant online can all feel like it seems like some cases that we saw on yesterday's news. And that is a very completed introduction. So thank you so much. And now we are inviting Professor Panthip Pruksacholavit to provide the experience from Thailand. Thank you.